Alright, so I'm going to show you an example of how to do one of the questions in part 2, where you're given a statement about the weather and have to predict which climates it might fit in. So the first thing I'm going to look at are the directions and the resources. So for each statement about weather, say what climates it could or could not be part of and explain why. So first thing I'm noticing is it's saying could or could not. That means I don't have to be 100% sure. This is somewhat of a prediction or an educated guess. Second is I see that descriptions of the 6 climates can be seen below the questions, and I have links to these 3 different resources in the document. So if I forget what the 6 climates are, I can click here and it brings me to this quick reference of what they look like. Also, I see I have a New York City climograph, so if I click there, I can see what New York City looks like, remembering that is a temperate climate, so that's what a temperate climate will look like. And lastly, I have these 6 climate references with more details. So if I click here, I see those same 6 climates, but with more description in case I forgot what they are. All right. So the first example I have right here is on September 8th, there was a snowstorm that left 4 inches of snow. Now first I remember that this is a statement about the weather. I know it's a statement about the weather because it's just talking about one day. And so using what I know about that, I can predict which climates would fit with that and which climates would not fit with that. And as it says, I can pick one or several. All right. So first, I know what, I think it might actually be easier to think about what it doesn't fit with first. So when I go and I think about what the statement's saying, it says in September there was 4 inches of snow. So that tells me on this date, if it's snowing, the temperature must have been pretty cold. So if I know it's going to be cold in September, that should make it pretty easy to eliminate some of those climates. So if I go down to my quick climate reference, arid, that's a desert. It's not going to be cold enough to snow, so I know it cannot be arid. So I'm just going to add that in right here. It would not fit in arid. If I keep looking, polar, that's pretty cold. It might be polar, so I can't eliminate that. Tundra is also pretty cold, so I can't eliminate that. Temperate, so that's New York, and I know that even though it snows in New York, September seems a little early, so I don't think it's going to be a temperate climate. So let me add that in. Temperate. Also, damp tropical. While I would expect some precipitation in a damp tropical climate, I wouldn't expect snow. So it's way too cold in the example for it to be damp tropical, so I know it can't be that. And lastly, mild Mediterranean. I know that is pretty similar to a temperate climate, so if it can't be temperate, it can't be mild Mediterranean either. So I'll finish that. Or mild Mediterranean. Oops. All right. So now I listed the climates it can't be. Now I have to explain why. And so I could kind of sum all of that up with, since it was snowing in September, I know it would have to be pretty cold in the fall, which is colder than any of these climates are. So that can be my explanation of it can't be any of these climates because it needs to be cold in September in order to snow. All of these climates are too warm, so snow would be highly unlikely in them in September. And that's it. It's not a very long explanation, but I put enough detail in there to make it really clear none of these examples would fit. All right, so now, if you remember earlier, what climates could it fit in? I said it could be polar or tundra. If you can get a specific one, that's even better. But if you can narrow it down to just two with a good explanation, that's good enough. And so for my explanation, it would be, in order to snow, it would have to be cold in September. These are the only two climates where it would be that cold. However, to take this answer to be even better, if I think about precipitation between polar and tundra, if I go back to my detailed reference, I would know that polar climates, even though they're very cold, they have very little precipitation. So the fact that I got 4 inches of precipitation in one day tells me that polar is unlikely. It could be, but it's probably tundra. So to make my answer level 4 worthy, I'm going to add that detail in and say, however, polar climates get very little precipitation, so this is most likely a tundra. Now the reason I'm using words like most likely or unlikely over here is because you don't have to be certain. One day of weather isn't going to perfectly tell you about the climate, but it can give us some pretty good guesses. So that's all you got to do for the other examples. Say which climates this weather makes sense that it might fit in, and which ones it doesn't fit in. And remember, if you need any more help, email or G-chat myself or Mr. T, or come see us in office hours. All right, have a good day, everybody. Good luck.